Big Red 572005 asks, if you had to pick one aspect of the Notre Dame offense to improve exponentially, where or what would it be? So if you're talking about, a run, pass, something like that, to me, it would be, I want to see an offense that's more efficient and explosive in the pass game. And the reason I say that is because I believe if you look at Notre Dame's numbers and you compare it to other top programs, and I've done this somewhat recently at Irish Breakdown, those teams are averaging minimum 8 yards per attempt, but the teams that aren't running, like Clemson's like in the eights because they're a pure spread team. And they throw a ton of screens and stuff behind the lines, which is going to bring your yards per attempt down. But the teams that are more pro style in their attack, like Alabama, Ohio State, teams that are Oklahoma's an air raid, but I would view that as more pro style than a pure college spread. Those teams are up 9, 10, 11 yards per pass attempt, where Notre Dame's in the sevens. And the only time Ian Book was ever really above 8.0 was really his first year when Notre Dame was running a lot of RPOs. And so I'd like to see them kind of get back more to that. He was 8.0 this year, 7.6 last year, and then he was 8.4 in 2018. But he was at like 8.9 in the regular season as a starter. He had a short throw for a touchdown against, I think it was Vanderbilt, where he came off the bench and threw a pass there. I'm actually going to look that up because now that's kind of in my head and I want to remember when that was. Yeah, Vanderbilt. He threw a 3-yard pass. He threw three attempts for 3 completions for 13 yards, 4.3 attempt because he was coming in the red zone. And, so that dragged his number down. But you look at the rest of the year, he was once he got in the starting lineup, he was 9.6, 8.4, 7.7, 8.3, 10.0, 10.1, 7.9, 9.0. That's some much better yards per attempt. And what that does and why that matters is that if you're more efficient in the pass game and more explosive in the pass game, it makes you better on early downs. It makes you more balanced on early downs. So you're not throwing as many incompletions on early downs, which then kind of throws off your whole series. But you're getting those 4, 5, 6-yard gains on first down with RPOs or with screens, right? And then as you're more efficient and more explosive with the pass game, now that forces the defense to widen. And that's the whole point I keep talking about. If you're a 2-3 tight end set and you're not throwing out of that and you're just, those guys are always reduced and kind of in a box, it condenses the whole field for the defense. It gives them less ground they have to cover, which means they're closer to your running backs when your running backs get through those holes. It means it's a lot easier for them to outnumber you in the box by spreading the field and forcing them to defend the entire width of the field. See, that's what Notre Dame doesn't do. They don't do a good enough job of forcing teams to defend the entire width and length of the field because they don't have an overly explosive pass game and they don't have much of a perimeter pass game. And so by doing that, it makes it easier to defend the run game. If you became more efficient and explosive with your pass game, now all of a sudden they have to bump those backers out a little bit, at least one of them. Those safeties can't come downhill as aggressively. And now all of a sudden, Kyron Williams' normal carry, which is going for 5-6 yards before both safeties, come down on them. Now they're from more depth. And now that 5-6 yard gain turns into a 15-20 yard gain, or if he can make a guy miss, a touchdown or a huge play. And that's why it matters. Or in Chris Tyree's case, that extra crease is the difference between an 8-yard gain and a touchdown. And so that's why, to me, if you become a more efficient and explosive pass game, then all of a sudden that changes everything that you're doing as a football team, because you've now become a team that you have to, a defense has to defend the whole field. And that's just not something that Notre Dame has done enough of. And I'm going to try to find those numbers. I did a breakdown of this recently, and I'm going to try to find that as we're talking. Actually, here it is. So let's pull that up. So I'm going to just show you here as an example of Nick's. We played that for Coach Saban's comments earlier the week, where he talked about. I'm going to pull it up all the way so you can see it. So this is Alabama's numbers since 2009. And you see the big jump in points per game. You see the big jump in yards per game. You see the big jump in yards per play. Their rushing yards per play has been about the same, right? You see that over here, and then their rushing yards have gone down. What's been the big jump is they were kind of in that 8 to 8.6 range every year, and then all of a sudden, boom! The last 2-3 years, they've just had this big jump because they've developed a more explosive and efficient pass game. And if you look at Notre Dame compared to those teams, way down, so this is the last 3 national title teams, the individual seasons. Notre Dame's way down in points, way down in yards per game, way down in yards per play. But if you look at their rushing numbers, they're right on point with the last two national title teams. They've actually rushed for more yards, and they're right on par for yards per rush, right? The big difference is over here in the yards per attempt and the yards per completion. Now, again, Clemson's a little different because Clemson is a traditional spread team, and a traditional spread team is going to throw a lot more throws behind the line, which means fewer yards per attempt, but their efficiency is still very good. And that's the thing that you have to look at. So those are the numbers that, to me, Notre Dame has to get a lot better with if they're going to take their offense to that next level. So hopefully